Let's get the views now of geopolitical analyst Marco Vincenzino, who can join us in the studio. Marco, thank you for your time again. Looking at what Lloyd Austin, the US Defense Secretary, has said in the past hour, saying that these strikes are separate and distinct, he says, from the Israel-Gaza war. Clearly, the sensitivity, they don't want to, as some have said, light the blue touch paper on this, the tinderbox.
I think what he was trying to say is that there's been a U.S. presence in Syria and Iraq for many years now. About 900 troops, American troops in northeast Syria, and about 2,500 American troops in Iraq. Their primary mission is to help in anti-ISIS missions.
Yeah.
So the reality, and the last time the U.S. struck was in March of 2023, and they've mostly targeted at Iranian-backed proxies who have often sent bombs or tried to have attacks on American bases, their presence in the region. So this is nothing new. This was going on well before October 7th, and I think he wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, but clearly the question about the role that Iran is playing, and in particular the Iranian Revolutionary Guard.
Yeah, their proxies, the non-state actors, the Revolutionary Guards and their, call them acolytes, the people they support, the factions they support. They range from Hezbollah in Lebanon, other groups in Syria, Houthis in Yemen, and Hamas, and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which they've backed for many years. It's a smaller group in Gaza, but a far more radical one than Hamas. So this, yeah, I mean, this is part. I think everyone at this time is posturing. The Iranians are posturing. I think really deep down inside, they don't want an all-out regional conflict. But I think what happens here is that no one has an intent to go to war, but everyone may go to war. What I mean by that is the fact that this game, it's a dangerous game of brinksmanship is being played.
Yeah, but
and all you need is the slightest miscalculation and things can spin out of control.
But the original suggestion was that the Iranians had tried to encourage things to happen, if we can put it that way, because of this growing accord between Israel and Saudi Arabia.
Take advantage of the situation to increase your leverage, but to do it in a very targeted way. But once again, when you play that game of brinksmanship, you run that very serious risk. And if things spin out of control, not just in the region, but potentially beyond.
Israel has stressed, hasn't it, that its war is with Hamas and Hamas only. They seem to be making some progress in destroying Hamas infrastructure, taking out some of the commanders. Do you think things are working up now towards that full-scale invasion, or it's going to be a lot more of a gradual process here?
Netanyahu is under a lot of pressure right now from those who are telling him to take a more aggressive approach, and there's others, particularly in Western capitals in the U.S., are telling him to take urge restraint and take more of a slower approach. Now, I think those who are saying the more slower approach, what they mean by that is obviously you have the humanitarian situation. You have hostages. You have the fact that if you go in aggressively too strong, your casualty rate is going to be very high due to urban warfare. And there's also the fact that the Americans want to strengthen their defense positions because if there is an all-out assault, ground assault immediately, what happens is that, once again, going back to Syria, American presence in Syria, American presence in Iraq, they'll come a direct attack much more than they are now. So in order to do that, you have to bring, the Americans are transporting defense systems for themselves and also more aid for the Israelis in preparation for a broader regional war. And about 900 more American troops will be going to the region to operate these defense systems. And then since October 7th, they've sent 2,000 more Marines to the region, plus 2 aircraft carrier battle groups.
And we are getting these messages from Washington that Biden is trying to stay Netanyahu's hand, saying, you know, don't go in for an all-out ground offensive because of what might happen as a result of that. Is that to buy those US forces time to get the stuff in position, or really to explain to Israel what the consequences could be if they go in hard?
It's a combination. Like I said, it's the humanitarian situation on the ground. If it's a catastrophe in the making. Some would say it's a catastrophe already, but the situation is not getting any better on the ground. So that there's obviously international pressure as a result of that. Once again, you can also look at the fact is that the Americans are trying to strengthen their positions to prepare for a broader regional war if it does take place. Hostages.
Yeah.
Over 200 hostages. Some have been released.
229 now, we're told, yeah.
In recent days, some have been released. The idea is that if you can buy a bit of time, take a slower approach with more targeted raids as opposed to an all-out assault, you may bring out more hostages.
But what are the chances?
So you have several factors at play here. It's not just one thing.
What are the chances of actually going in and getting those hostages out alive rather than hoping that Qatar, Turkey negotiate some sort of gradual release of them? The trickle that we've seen.
Very, very difficult. Obviously, many of these hostages are likely to be held on the ground. There's a network of tunnels on the Gaza, extensive. Very, very extensive.
And they're being held by different militant groups, we understand.
As a result, as I mentioned, it's not just Hamas. You also have Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which are the more radical ones. And so as the result of all of this, time, you may get, I don't think you're going to get all the hostages out, all 229, but even if you can get a few dozen out more, you're saving lives. These are all factors that Netanyahu and the military and the leadership, the war cabinet, has to take into consideration. They also have domestic opinion within Israel itself. So you have...
we were hearing earlier from a former advisor to two Israeli prime ministers.
You have internal pressure from Israel, political pressure internally. You got pressure from allies, specifically from the United States. Other leaders from the regions that are, we call them Arab-friendly states that recognize Israel, Egypt, Jordan, they have their own domestic pressure. So there's several pieces at the table that they have to take in consideration in this wider chessboard.
Yeah, and a wrong move could be catastrophic, of course.
One wrong move, things can spin out of control, and that fear is a regional war and potentially beyond.
Marco, thanks for your thoughts and joining us here on TV News. Thank you.